Welcome back. My name is Kris Krohn, the Minimalist Millionaire, and today I'm proving that enough is everything. Think about that for just a moment. We live in a world where there's either scarcity, not enough, or there's excess, too much. And sandwiched right in the middle is balance. How much is too much house? Today I'm going to take you on a journey where my first apartment was 400 square feet, and today I'm living in a 35,000 square foot home. You could say that one, scarcity, the other, excess. And it really begs this question: how much is enough? Understanding the answer to this question can shave years or decades off of your life of pursuing the wrong path in life. Because think about it. You've grown up in a world where someone's telling you what your status quo should be, and then you should want a nicer home, and then maybe you want nicer vehicles. And then we get caught up in this game where we're chasing something, hoping that when we get there, we're gonna feel a certain way. And it's really our feelings that are driving this machine, but the question is, are the wrong feelings driving us? Or when we get there, and we get that feeling, will we say that it was worthwhile? Or will we look back and say, it spent years to arrive at this destination? 22 years ago, I bought my very first home, and it was a very tiny, modest 1,600 square foot home. Fast forward, I'm 45 years old and I live in a 35,000 square foot mansion. And so I'm gonna take you on a journey today of what I've learned as I've moved through different houses that I've lived in, and ultimately where I stand today on whether I'm happy that I'm living in this 35,000 square foot home or whether it's become a nightmare. You can understand why a college kid might want to get into his first house, right? I mean, start life, I'm married, let's get ahead. But if you look at my last house, it's huge. Like, what compelled me to build this monstrous mansion? Well, motivations change. And I want to share with you why I got into real estate in the first place. I was in college. I wanted to become a doctor. I had just failed at organic chemistry for the second time. And by failed, I mean I got a C-, which basically means you're not going to get into pre-med. And so I was feeling down, but because I was newly married, I remember feeling lost, like I have an undeclared major. And at the time I had a telemarketing job, which didn't make me feel great about my life. I came home from work when my wife didn't expect it because it had been a long day at school, work wasn't going well, telemarketing job, enough said. And I never saw my wife. And I was upset. I just wanted to be held. I just wanted to be with her. I never got to really see her much. And when I came home, I found her in tears. And I'm like, if I hadn't come home at this time, I wouldn't have found her in tears. What is happening? She was crying because tuition was due in 3 weeks and we weren't gonna be able to pay for it, which meant we were gonna go into debt, which is kind of common for kids our age. But then I found out that she was crying because we had rent due next week and we had already spent the paycheck. We didn't know how we were gonna pay for rent. And I was like, okay, we're gonna get kicked out. This is a problem. But the reason why she was crying, I found out, was because she bounced a check trying to buy groceries. And she was embarrassed and humiliated, and she came home from the store empty-handed to our tiny little apartment that had no food in it. And in that moment, I felt really tiny, like I had let my best friend down. I promised her that if she married me, that I was gonna create this wonderful life for her, and I was gonna take care of her, and I was gonna make everything we were gonna do it all. But here I was failing miserably. And I had no plan, and I didn't know where I was going. And in that moment, I made a really important decision. I decided that I was willing to do whatever it took to not feel that way. And that decision is actually what started changing things for me, because a short while later, I met my first mentor in real estate, John, who had made over $10 million in real estate, and he coached me into buying my first property. Now, I want you to check out this. This is like 14 months later of following John's advice. We were gonna house hack. He basically said, save $5,000 in your bank account, which for us was a ton of money. And he basically said, you need to get a couple of credit cards because you haven't established your credit. The bank will wanna see that. And the reason why you need you to wait 14 months is so that you get a 2-year work history so that essentially you can qualify with a bank giving you a 3% down payment. And that's exactly what happened 14 months later. I remember driving home from work and I felt the Spirit of God moving through me saying, you gotta drive home this weird way. And I'm like, that's weird. I'm like, I'm a very efficient person. I'm just gonna drive home. And the steering wheel, it moved to the right. And so I started taking these back neighborhood roads. And sure enough, I saw this for sale by owner sign on the side of the road. This cute little brick Rambler. Looked like it had a basement apartment. And it had for sale by owner, and it had the price, $110,000. I did not know what I was doing, and John, my mentor, wasn't there, and I whipped my car around and I parked. I don't know why my feet were moving because my brain was stalled. My feet took me to the back of my hatchback. I was driving a red 1993 Honda Civic with like 270,000 miles on it or something, 230,000 miles. And in the back, I had basically a notepad and pen. I wanted to look more official because, truth be told, I was young. I was like 22 years old and I looked even younger. And so I couldn't grow facial hair or anything like that. I walked up to the front door and I knocked on the door, and that's when it hit me. I'm entering a negotiation, but my mentor isn't here and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a realtor. I don't have anything. And this woman came to the door. She was grouchy and mean and nasty. And she said, "What do you want?" And I told her that I wanted to buy the house for $100,000 instead of $110,000. I kid you not, the first thing I did was try to negotiate. I hadn't seen the house. I didn't know anything. I didn't have any concept of anything. And she said no, and slammed the door. And I was like, no, this isn't right. I'm supposed to be here. So I knocked on the door again. She opened. I said, well, can I see the house? I ended up taking her house at $110,000. It ended up being worth $150,000. So I bought it $40,000 below market. And because I had followed my mentor's advice, I had 2 years of work history, I had my 2 extra credit cards, I had $5,000 in the bank. I was able to put a 3% down payment on that house. It was like $3,300. So it was 3.5% down payment. And my wife and I lived in the upstairs 3-bedroom. We rented out the basement, and the basement covered the mortgage. So we essentially were living for free. Now I want to pause. I bought this house as a college kid with an undeclared major because my motivation was what? I never want to feel that way again, that I didn't take care of my family. I never want to feel poor like I did with my parents and growing up and always fighting about money. I wanted a different life, and that motivation was in there. That's why I bought that house. I bought that house below market. I lived in it for free. And 12 months later, I used a home equity line of credit. It was a free loan from the bank. I pulled some of that equity out and I used it to buy another house the city over. Now this house was like twice as big. It was like 3,000 square feet. It was a foreclosure. I bought it for $150,000. It was worth $230,000. So it was about $80,000 below market. Instead of moving into the nicer, newer house, we stayed into the old one that we lived for free. And this house, we did a lease option. The tenants moved in, gave us a down payment, and we had a $600 a month positive cash flow. So I'm still in college. I've got 2 homes. I'm living for free, plus getting paid $600. And this is when my wife became a fan. And she's like, Kris, if we buy more houses that pay us $600 a month or whatever, like, this is the best thing that could happen to us. And that's when she said, how many homes do we need to get to $10,000 a month so you don't have to have a job? And all of a sudden my path was clear. At that time in my life, what I valued was freedom. That was my motivation. And my wife and I used the equity in the second house to buy the third house. And then my father-in-law got curious of what we were doing. And he said, hey, can I use my 401k and buy a house and we'll split everything 50-50? Long story short, by the time I graduated college, I had 25 properties. Those 25 homes were paying me $12,000 a month. It meant that I could quit my day job and never need one again. That's where my journey brought me. The game was freedom. We were living so far below our means, and it was just like we had all this excess money. Like, we weren't driving nice cars. We didn't own a single luxury item, but we were free. Now, this is important because part of becoming the minimalist millionaire is I had to go from poverty, I zoomed into luxury, and then at some point I had to rebalance and find this game where I could answer the question, how much is enough? The next chapter in my life is called luxury. And this is where I think I started making some mistakes. You see, I was making $12,000 a month residually. I quit my job and I wanted to double my portfolio that year. And so I started as a mortgage lender making money originating loans. And so I got my income up between my real estate and my lending business. I was making about $350,000 a year, which, by the way, right out of college, that's pretty good. The next year I made $500,000. And so I went from living on the cheap to building this $1.8 million dream home right in the canyon outside of Sundance, just a 14-minute drive up to the ski lift. And the house was beautiful. I designed the whole thing. It was about 9,000 square feet. And when we moved into this home, like, it was beautiful. The community was beautiful. The house was beautiful. It came with a new heavy mortgage that was a lot higher. Remember, I got my first Cadillac. I got my first BMW. And so my lifestyle became more expensive. I was still living below my means, but I started recognizing that even though it felt good to have a beautiful home and beautiful cars and start doing some world travel, I started getting that feeling that it was never going to be enough. I don't think I was willing to admit it yet, but it felt a little bit like a bottomless pit. And I want to tell you why. It's kind of private, but I was struggling in my marriage. And I was struggling to feel all the love that I wanted to with my wife because we had some problems that we weren't working out. And I told myself that if I had a nicer house and drove nicer cars and would take her on trips, that maybe as a reward, I would be more deserving of the love that I received. I didn't know that love was free. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to pay for it. We just had problems and trauma that hadn't been resolved. So this was misguided. And so I wanted to give her better. I wanted to give her more. I wanted to give her a nicer lifestyle. I wanted to be that high value man. And yet the trade-off didn't give me what I wanted. And so it was like, it must not be enough yet. I need more. I need to go bigger. I need to do more. But that pit wasn't filling. And so I kept on expanding. And this house was beautiful. It had a theater room, a bedroom for each of my kids, a great space for entertaining, custom built kitchen. We loved this house. This was my first house that I put on YouTube that went viral and got millions of views. And it was beautiful. I was buying a lot more real estate. I went from buying hundreds of homes to thousands of homes for my investors, for my partners. Everything got expanded. Everything got bigger. I started buying more companies, owning more companies, starting more companies. And yet I wasn't satiating this thing inside, and I was out of balance. I was starting to move now into extreme excess. And my trips became more lavish. And I remember when I took my private jet down to the Galapagos and rented a private multi-million-dollar yacht for a week with a crew that would drive us around and a naturalist, a guide, and they'd make all of our food. And we took this 6-figure trip together. It was so insane. It was so amazing. And inside, my ego and my pride was just beaming with, look at me and look at what I've created. But if I'm honest with myself, was I enough yet? No, it wasn't enough, because that pit, it was bottomless. And when you have a pit that's bottomless, you either do too much of some things or not enough of other things. And I was finding excess in everything. I was going to the gym 2 hours a day. I was doing bodybuilding competitions. I was treating my wife as best as I could, giving her everything she wanted. I was spending more and more money on her. I got into hunting and started buying these really expensive hunting trips around the world. Excess, more. Checking inside, anxiety, not enough yet, searching for more. After living in that custom house for 11 years, my wife and I woke up one day and we had this feeling, we're not supposed to be here anymore. And this is when we found a beautiful private mountain community with this gorgeous home, which was technically a little bit of a downgrade. It was like an 8,300 square foot home and a beautiful home nonetheless. We wanted to have a fresh start. But once we got into the home, we started making plans for how we were going to buy the land next door and the land south, and we wanted to build this huge addition. And it started off with just an underground, it's a mountain community, so it snows in the winter. It's like, we're just gonna have an underground garden. And so it just needs to be like 20 feet underground. And then by the time the whole thing was done, there was no garden, but there was this like 25,000 square foot addition with everything that you can possibly imagine. And I remember praying and asking God, like, is this the right move for our family? We're community builders, we gather people, like, is this the right thing? And while we felt that it was the right thing, something else was going on inside. More, not enough yet. The bottomless pit was speaking to me, and it was screaming, excess. Couldn't hear it, it's not the way I heard the message, but in hindsight, that's what it was. All right, check it out. When my wife and I first moved here to this property, this was the house right here. It's 8,300 square feet. And I'm gonna show you that one real quick, but I wanna give you the view right now of how it kind of connects here to the rest of everything else back here. This is now what makes it over 35,000 square feet. And we just went crazy. And at the end of the video, I'll share with you where my conflict is with that, where I'm really happy, and also where I'm not. So what does it mean to be a minimalist millionaire? Well, it means that you're smart with your money and you know how to make the money, but you're really smart with it. Like, this is a Cadillac, right? I could get a GMC for a whole lot less. And by the way, I'm listing this and selling it and I'm trading it, not just for a GMC, but a used one, a reliable one. Why am I doing that? It's because I can pay a lot less money, more or less have the same experience, but have my money stewarded in a much more intelligent way. Now, I don't want you to think that luxury is bad, because I'm not saying that luxury is bad. I'm just saying that only I can't know for you what excess is, but you will. And when you're in excess, it's gonna fling you out of balance. It's gonna cost you maybe your marriage, your relationship with kids, friendships. It could put undue stress and pressure on yourself. They could hurt you in a number of ways. You might have to self-medicate with, feeding different addictions. That's the problem with excess when we're not living life in balance. Sorry, we got the cleaners in here. Check it out. When you first walk in the house, if it weren't a rainy day, this opens up. You got this beautiful deck, you've got this gorgeous view, and already you can see this house was basically designed with a lot of windows. Check it out. You come into the main room, you've got your kitchen right over here, you've got your dining area, and look at this. This is why we fell in love with the house. It was because we had these views, we are in nature, definitely calmed me down. There's a lot of good things about this. This is my master bedroom. What I love about this is when I go to bed at night and I look out this window and I see the city lights, it's stunning, it's gorgeous. But look at the problem we have in society. I remember I shot a video and this TV got shot and someone said, bro, what are you doing with a 55-inch TV? Dude, I thought you were rich. I thought you were wealthy. We live in this world where everyone is just brainstormed to be thinking more and not enough. I got some bedrooms upstairs. I got some bedrooms downstairs. I want to share one super meaningful thing my wife and I did with some of this money that we made. Because it's not like it's all just been spent into luxurious living. All right, this is the schoolroom. One of the reasons why my wife and I wanted to make far better than average money is that we wanted to give our children an education not from the public school system. So 6 years ago, we hired our own teachers, we took our kids out, and we basically said, let's design school the way we want. Let's give them all a custom private education. Now, truth be told, in the last 5 years, I've spent well over $1 million giving them that private education. It would have been free from the school system. That wasn't excess. That was mission, that was purpose. That was one of the main reasons why my wife and I wanted to become successful, is because we wanted something different for our children. So they do some schooling downstairs. It's a little for fun. This is my wife's museum grade crystal collection captured in a salt room. Has nothing to do with the schoolroom. And then over here, this is where we've got our downstairs living room. A couple more of our chairs. We're not going to disturb anything. David is staring at the Matrix. Remember, this is a journey towards minimalism. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to sell crystals and sell cars and sell stuff. But I've been able to figure out what was good money spent and what ended up just being excess. And I look at some of the trips I've taken and the memories we've made, I'm like, zero regret there. The way I've been educating my children, zero regret there. But then there are other things that don't quite make sense. Come check this out. This is pink fluorite. It's very, very rare. It's bicolor. It has green inclusion in it. This piece right here, do you want to guess what that's worth? That is a 6-figure stone. This is another part of its collection. We've got some more pink fluorite right here. Between these pieces right here alone, it's worth multiple 6 figures. Ask me how much personal value I have received by owning something that is worth that. It's given me almost no utility. I could have literally gotten just as much value staring at a picture of it online. So that for me is excess. Scarcity, not enough. Excess, too much. What is balance? And I hope in making this video, I'm basically saying, hey, peer in on my world, you can judge me, but if you subscribe and keep watching the videos that come after, you're gonna watch me take everything of excess and eliminate it, sell it, trade it, downsell it for what I consider to be balance, which, by the way, is not for you. It's a principle. And the big overarching principle is what is right for you and your family. Because if you can live in balance, and if you can follow my investment principles, where you can make several $1 million, not to be rich, but to live off of its residual income, then you can live the life that you want, and at the same time, not have the excess distracting you, or living in scarcity, having the lack of confidence or fear that you'll never even get to the middle point. You understand? The house isn't quite done yet, but this is the new museum collection of crystals. It has a centerpiece right here. It has crystals on the ceiling. And while it's not quite done, look at how cool this space is. We had my daughter's wedding here. Check out how cool this spot is. Right now I'm standing on a pool. There's only 2 companies in the world that make a pool that will descend and lower and go up. And this is what I spent 4 years collecting and building for my wife. This is a custom crystal museum. More on this later. But I've got a full spa in that suite of my house up there. I've got an extra kitchen, another one downstairs. I got a racquetball court. I've got a meditation zone. Like, this house is chock full of such cool, incredible amenities. But now let me take you back. It's interesting. You have those moments in life you can't take back that change everything. And if you watch the last video, the first video in this series, I shared with you how my daughter tried to take her life in front of me 2 years ago. This house was already 2 years in development. It was designed. We had broken ground on it. That meant that the money was committed, it was gonna happen. And before this house finished, I just sat there like, why do I need this? And why do I even want this? The space is beautiful, but am I in balance or am I in excess? I think this house in some ways represents who I was becoming for the last 20 years financially. A man who didn't know how to love himself. A man who had a bottomless pit didn't really know what enough was. And so part of me loves this creation and wants to put it into such great use for what it was intended for, people and community, bringing people together in beautiful ways. But there's another part of my soul that feels like a monk. I don't need shit. I don't need stuff to feel good. And so it's really weird having this physical embodiment of this mansion and at the same time just knowing that I don't need it. And that's really what's inspired this series, is you can add unnecessary stress to your life pursuing things that you tell yourself matter and later don't. The late Wayne Dyer put it really well. He said, that which is important to you in the spring of your life will not be what's important to you in the fall or the winter of your life. And so what you and I need to do is we need to ask, what season are we in? And how will we feel about this pursuit in the next season? Will we look back with regret and say that it was too much excess? Or will we feel proud and say, no, this was right and this felt good for me? These are the thought-provoking questions that I want to leave with you. Because as I started on my journey, living in a 400 square foot ugly basement apartment with my new bride, and now 20 plus years later, living in a 35,000 square foot mansion, asking this question, how much is enough? And if I had to do it all again, what would I do different? Well, I think that's what I'm correcting right now. You see, in this series, you're gonna watch me sell a lot of stuff off. And one of the biggest things that I'm waiting to decide on is, what do I do with this house? Do I keep it? Do I sell it? And trust me, you'll be the first to know, because at the end of the day, this journey as a multimillionaire to becoming a minimalist is really just about finding balance. And that's what I wish for you. That's what I hope for you. So let's summarize. The first house that I bought and lived in, I paid $110,000 for it. Later, after building a portfolio of 25 homes, paying me $12,000 a month residually, and having all of the prospects to grow and build and expand my portfolio, I then built a custom $1.8 million house for $1.4 million. And that, I think, marked the beginning of where excess started to expand. When I moved up here, this house that I'm living in, the original portion, that's 8,300 square feet, that house is between 3 and 4 million. But now with this addition, it's a $16.5 million replacement cost. And it's a community center. And one family can't possibly live here. It's huge, it's massive. What's enough? How much is enough? What does balance financially look like for you? What does balance look like when you also are taking care of your body and it's strong and it's fit? What does it look like when you're investing in your marriage, or you're investing in your children, in your core relationships, so that no one's being neglected? There's not scarcity or excess, it's balance. What does it look like for you to honor your relationship with God? What does it look like for you to have balance there? If you go to Dave Ramsey, he's gonna tell you to just do everything you can to get out of debt. And I don't believe in that, because I believe that fosters scarcity, the opposite of excess. I believe that you should be using your 401ks and your IRAs and the equity in your homes to invest in real estate. I know how to consistently produce 30 to 60% each year on my money. And if you model that out over 20 years, you wind up with several $1 million. A lot of people will say, well, Kris, that's rich. It's like, no, because if it's all in paid off free and clear real estate, 5% you're gonna take that entire net worth, and 5% of that is what's gonna give you your cash flow. So if you have $5 million in paid off free and clear real estate, it's probably gonna pay you around $250,000 a year. It's not a ton of money, but for someone that is in balance, it's probably more than enough. And so that's the game. The game is to make the choices that keep you in balance, neither in excess, neither in scarcity. Don't be the penny pincher that's afraid to invest, because I have to reform a lot of those people. And then of course you have those that are living in excess. They're not quite keeping up with their choices, they're spending. Now the game is for you to find your balance. I hope this was thought-provoking. I hope it was useful. Thank you for joining me on our journey today. Subscribe, keep seeing the other moves and changes that I make. I hope they help you find balance and peace in your life.